What's up, guys? Doug Polk here, and welcome back for another episode of the Doug Polk Podcast. Today, we are joined by 2012 WSOP Main Event champion Greg Merson joins the podcast. Known Greg for a long time. We have some pretty similar interests. We're going to be talking today about cheating in poker, although actually I hope that's not our interest. Maybe that's not the best intro. Anyway, we're going to talk about cheating in poker, shot clocks, WSOP, maybe a little online poker stuff, possibly some crypto topics. And then I also wanted to talk at the end for a little bit about sobriety, 10 years for Greg Merson sober. Pretty impressive stuff. But before we jump into that, a brief word from our sponsor. This podcast is brought to you by CoinFLEX. CoinFLEX is a cryptocurrency derivatives exchange and is the home of crypto yield for people to both trade and earn crypto. We have exciting news to share today. CoinFLEX is coming to the US with CoinFLEX.US, the only place in America where you can earn interest every 8 hours with flexUSD. FlexUSD is a revolutionary stablecoin that is fully backed, independently verified, and pays interest every 8 hours. No staking or lockups required. You can convert FlexUSD one-to-one with US dollars at any time and start earning interest wherever you hold it. Whether it's in your own CoinFLEX.US wallet, your MetaMask, or even in cold storage, you'll be getting paid every 8 hours. To celebrate the launch, CoinFLEX.US is giving away $100,000 for the first 2,000 people who join their waitlist. Create an account when the exchange goes live, mints $100 of FlexUSD, and holds it for a minimum of 14 days. It's $50 a person, 2,000 people, you do the math. Head over now to www.coinflex.us to learn more. Legal disclaimer: none of the information contained here constitutes an offer to buy or sell any currency, product, or financial instrument, to make any investment, or to participate in any particular trading strategy. Alrighty, a couple more things before we get going. Upswing Poker is excited to announce that next week on April 25th, we are going to be launching Elite Cash Game Exploits by Uri Peleg, the high-stakes coach, very well reviewed online. A lot of high-stakes guys have good things to say about his game. It's going to be a little bit more of an exploit style. You guys know me. I'm all about those exploits. We're going to be selling the exploit course starting next week. And of course, he's going to be joining the podcast next week to talk about his experience creating the podcast, creating this course, what's in store, as well as poker in today's environment. Also, one last thing before we get going here. The Lodge Championship Series will begin May 4th. Come on out to Round Rock, Austin, Texas. We got a lot of tournaments going down. $5 million guaranteed. A $3,000 main event. We'll have $2 million guaranteed in that as well. Should be a great one. Excited for what we have to come. All right, moving on. Let's introduce today's guest, Greg Merson. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, good morning, Doug. Thanks for having me on.
Great to have you on. I've wanted to have you on for a while. Not my best moment on the intro there, saying that we have similar interests like cheating and poker. That was probably
yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
Not the best for me. Thank you for coming on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. First, I just want to say hi to my wife and my daughters that are watching in upstate New York, and miss you guys, and I'm excited to see you later today.
Oh, wow. That's a heartwarming moment here to start off the podcast.
Hi, Presley.
Oh, it's very, very cute. Okay, so let's just kick this off, get into some poker stuff. So how much do you follow the poker scene today? Are you actively monitoring what's going on? I feel like, it seems like you do have some viewpoints on the current things happening in poker. How involved are you in the poker community today?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm still pretty involved, but definitely in the background more so than back in the day. I mean, I'm watching all these streams and stuff. I find them pretty interesting. Usually not watching them live because of the pace of play. I like to fast forward and stuff. But yeah, I guess I'm following the tournament updates. I'm following that scene. I've always been like a big tournament fanboy, but I've never really enjoyed playing them all that much. Like a live tournament here and there is fun for me, but to travel around playing these things, it's like hats off to the guys that are doing that. Yeah, I think we're kind of similar. We both love poker, although I know you don't really like to play as much anymore. I think you still love poker though.
Yeah, I would say I love the game of poker. I feel like it can become a little bit of a grind sometime. One of the cool things about tournaments is that, and I'm sure you know this, there's nothing like the feeling of going deep in a big tournament. It's really a rush. And when you realize how much money that you could win up top compared to what you're in for, and you start to think about, how significant that money could be, there's sort of an adrenaline and a rush that you get from playing those that you're just never going to get that in cash. I mean, look, like it's great when you have a big session in cash and you win 3, 4, 5 buy-ins or something, but nothing matches that feeling of running deep in a big tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, but I feel very lucky that I experienced that euphoric feeling like every time I play. The only time I really struggle with it is if I don't have enough tables / enough action. So if I'm playing 3 tables at 2-5, I don't feel anything, obviously. But if I'm playing 10 tables at 2-5, then like even though the stakes aren't that big, it's just like the speed of everything. I get into like a euphoric feeling, similar to being in a tournament. Yeah, I mean, if anything, there's just more pressure in the tournament environment, but I also feel like generally when you get deep in something, you're so exhausted that it becomes like a blur. So it's easier to deal with I guess the stress of it, and you're climbing the ladder of the pay jumps, so it's not as wild as it might seem from someone watching on the outside, like 3-handed in the main event final table, I think it's like 3 million, 5 million, 8 million or something pay jumps, but it's not like you're going to lose 5 million if you get third. Like you're still winning 3 million. So it's all relative, I guess.
It could really depend how you want to look at that. I feel like most people would look at it like I'm guaranteed this much. So you kind of do feel the pain of quote unquote losing the money that you don't make. Obviously, you don't lose the full amount, but your EV essentially, or your ICM,
sure. Yeah.
You lose the value. Something that struck me there that I found kind of interesting. I don't think I've heard almost anyone ever say this before, but basically you're saying that when you play like 10 tables at once, you get that same sort of euphoria that you get from running deep in one huge tournament, just because I guess of all the decisions that you get to make, or why do you think that happens?
Yeah, I mean, I guess just the adrenaline rush of playing so many hands, playing a lot of tables, and generally online the competition's tougher than live. So even if the stakes are lower, you're playing against tougher competition. So it's fun. And like a lot of times these days I'm playing PLO and No Limit at the same time, and sometimes I'm playing PLO and No Limit and PLO 8 at the same time, and that's like my new rush of playing 3 different big bet games at the same time. That's like the most fun I have now.
PLO 8 is otherwise known as, oh shit, this isn't PLO to most of us No Limit / PLO players. I think almost all my PLO 8 hands I've played were on accident, where I couldn't figure out why I got chopped in a pot. And I'm looking at the hands.
I've played 10 minutes heads up, not knowing which game I was playing. So I always label the table a different color than the PLO table so that it doesn't happen again.
That's smart stuff. Let's go ahead and get into our first topic here. So there's been a little bit of a hoopla in the community about Ali Imsirovic, who essentially he's been caught up in a few different potential cheating type scandals. I think the biggest one that most people are aware of was he was banned from GG Poker, over $1 million in the account, and did not really seem to put up a fight about it. Are you up to speed on Ali in general, and do you have any thoughts on what's happened with him, I guess, in the past, as well as maybe some of these recent allegations and / attacks from people like Alex Foxen?
Yeah, so it was kind of an awkward spot for me because generally I don't want to get involved too much with these things, but I had heard about this right before he played you heads up on WSOP. So I just kind of assumed that you knew about this, or I wanted to reach out to you, but also just trying not to get too involved. And then a few months later, had heard that he won one of the online bracelet events through a horse's account. I think it was one of the 3,200 high rollers. So there's another red flag. And I don't know. We played a ton of 500 on WSOP a year before he broke out in tournaments, and really great player, could see how bright he was. And obviously he's super sharp, so he doesn't really need to be doing any of this stuff to be a big winner. Like I think most people consider him one of the best. So it's kind of sad that this is, putting a black eye on the community. But like I've known him for a while because he got into poker through my old roommate, Evan Jarvis. I lived with Evan in Toronto for a year, and he found poker through Evan's YouTube. So Evan knew him right off the bat, and was telling me this is the next superstar. Charlie Carroll found poker the same way through Evan. So I met Charlie very early. I didn't meet I didn't meet Ali in person until he was more well known or whatever, but I had been hearing about him. So yeah, I don't know. It's like, what do you think? Do you think he cheated versus you? Because WSOP is not gonna they're not gonna help you. You know, they might respond with an email with 3 dots. You know,
That could happen because all chat is banned on WSOP. All right, I guess let me talk about this issue as specifically with me and Ali because it feels very personal to me. Ali was one of the first members of Upswing Poker, and as he was rising up, he was someone that we promoted. Look at this guy; he took a lot of the Upswing courses. This is sort of a staple of someone that you could be if you take the courses and you improve your game and you work hard. Obviously, he's a bright guy in his own right as well. You need a lot of things to go right in order for you to get to higher stakes. And then as these allegations started to come to the forefront, and specifically the GG poker banning, it was tough because it was someone that I definitely wanted to view in a positive way. And I'm starting to see that really there's more than what meets the eye here. And it's most likely that he did in fact cheat. I think the real red flag here, I think I said this earlier, but the fact that he lost over $1 million in his account on GG Poker, banned, money taken, and did not seem to put up a fight publicly, I think that is a huge red flag because I've seen people fight over basically any amount taken from them. I know that there are some cases where people essentially VPN'd onto a new account and they got money confiscated, and those guys even fight for it, right? So, I mean, I think that they normally don't win, but they at least put up a fight to try and get their money back. This was zero fight back, like, okay, just take the money, whatever, at least to my knowledge. So that was the first thing. I started to play Ali at 100, 200 on WSOP a year and a half ago as I was preparing for Daniel Negreanu. And the weird thing about when I played versus Ali is that there, in some very big pots, there were clear mistakes. There was one hand that sprung to mind where he basically donk jammed aces on a board. I'm going to just sort of make up a board just so we understand. But it was like king 10, 8, 5, king 10, 8, 5, 10. Okay, and he bet check called or something like that. And he donk jammed the river. And I called, and I had a good hand. I had a boat or a trip, so it doesn't really matter what I had. And he had aces, and I ran the sim for it, and it was 0% ever jam aces here. It's just a huge punt. It's like a huge number of big blind error, basically. And so I'm getting all these messages, and that was like a $60,000 pot or $50,000 pot or whatever it was. I'm getting all these messages from people like, "Hey, this guy's a cheater," you know. And then it's on one hand, it's like, okay, well, I'm weighing so many things here. On one hand, I know that these allegations about GG Poker, don't know exactly what's true or not. And then in the middle, I've known Ali for a long time. I've talked to him when he joined the lab. Like, this is someone that I would like to think isn't cheating me. And then on the third hand, I'm seeing big pots where he's clearly making mistakes. So it's kind of difficult because when you put all those things together, it's like, do you just not play this guy at higher stakes when realistically there's a very small number of people that are playing at high stakes? I think in retrospect, I probably should have quit. I don't remember the exact number I lost. Let's call it like 150, 200, 250. I really don't remember at this point, which isn't, by the way, that many buy-ins. And then also, when I look at that, I lost like 200. Let's call it 200K. I had like a 120K flip, basically, where we got in for a 6 buy-in pot, and I had kings versus a pair and a flush draw or whatever it was. So it's like, okay, if he got me, he got me. But how much EV was really captured, especially when I look at some of these pots where he was making some pretty clear mistakes in some bigger situations. And then the other part of that becomes like, was he doing that because he knows that if he makes these mistakes, I'll keep playing? Because there's a little bit of element of that with people.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of the topic. This will be my last point. I've talked for a while, but it kind of reminds me of the topic where people are like, oh, if I was cheating, I would never have done this, or I would never do that. I would cheat so much better. And you hear all those kinds of conversations going on. But is it possible that he's just punting some of these pots to keep my action? Unclear to me.
Yeah, I mean, good. It's actually really interesting to hear this because we've never spoken about this. I never brought it up to you, so this is the first time. I don't think have you spoken about this publicly at all?
Not really, no.
Yeah, so it is interesting to hear. I mean, I watched some of those hands, but yeah, I mean, he's sat in a couple of 5K no limit games that I've been in, and I've just instantly quit. Just like, I don't know if he's cheating, but I just don't want to be playing with anyone that's cheating. It just, even if he's not, it's just too in my head, and I don't want to deal with it. There's one or two other guys that I've thought are cheating in my pool that I do the same thing versus. I just, it is what it is. But we've both played against several bots over the years and people that are cheating for sure. It's just part of the scene.
Coming on here with hot takes, Greg. Like, I don't want to play versus people that are cheating. I love it.
Yeah. Well, even if someone's playing perfect in a 6-max game, maybe I'm losing, I don't know, 5 or 10 big blinds versus them. I'm not sure like how much a perfect player would be winning off me specifically. But then if you have a bad player losing 50 big blinds, I can still be winning in this game. So it's not the end of the world that if someone is playing perfect, quote unquote. But sometimes it's just too in my head. It can like get me on tilt and stuff. I just don't even, it's not even worth it. Yeah.
This actually is a kind of interesting topic because I feel like poker pros in general are slightly susceptible to being cheated. And the reason is that the people that are really paranoid, they're getting cheated all the time, the site's rigged, this is all whatever, they tend to be terrible players.
Mm-hmm.
The people that just put all that stuff to the side and focus on what's my hand, what's the best decision, how can I win the most money here, that kind of stuff, those are the guys that tend to be the big winners. So it's interesting once you get to the higher stakes because now you have all these guys that are really, really good at poker, but are susceptible to being cheated in a variety of ways. I mean, there's been a lot of examples of this over the last 10, 15, 20. I mean, since the start of poker, I'm sure people have been cheated. But specifically in today's modern era, I feel like online poker players maybe aren't totally the best equipped to deal with some of the ways that people might be cheating.
Like how so? Like go into more detail there.
Well, so like, for example, I think one of the more common ways that people will cheat nowadays in live poker is that they'll essentially organize. There's basically, I'm trying to think about. All right, so basically one of the shuffle machines that you can use for poker if you don't hand shuffle, it's called the Deckmate 2, and basically you can sort cards and can sort them into the exact. Basically, the idea is that it could read. It has a camera, it can read the cards so that it can sort them into the exact order of a starting deck.
Yep.
The problem is, whenever it goes in, it comes out, it knows the sequence of the cards, and so when people put the deck in and then put it out, if there's a way to relay that information from the device to a phone to a person, whatever it might be, then you can know the exact sequence of cards. And so essentially this shuffle assist thing can be used to cheat in games anywhere. And I've heard of many cases of this being used to cheat.
Yeah.
I've heard it being used in more private games. I've heard public games. I've heard licensed casinos. I've heard this has happened all over the place for many years. Which is why, by the way, if you end up using a shuffle machine for anything, you should try and use Deckmate 1s because they don't know the sequence of cards. But that's just like one example. There's tons of other. I mean, Mike Postle. I don't know if he was doing that or if they were just relaying. They were probably just relaying the cards from the stream, honestly.
Yeah, I think that's what he was doing.
But anyway, I guess the point that I'm just driving at here is, do you think maybe that some of these guys with online poker backgrounds that are really good end up being fairly vulnerable to these types of techniques because they're maybe not as used to trying to protect like the integrity of the game?
Yeah, I mean, the problem with the online stuff now is that the top guys are so good that it's so easy to be accused of cheating because you're just that sharp, especially if you improve a ton over a 6 to 12 month period. It's pretty suspicious in my eyes, but you could have just put in all the hard work and got really good. So I had accused someone of cheating a couple of years ago, and it was someone that I was talking to on Discord all the time and played with all the time, and I always thought he was a pretty good player, and then kind of out of nowhere just seemed to be crushing everyone, and just hats off to him if he wasn't using anything and got that good. I mean, if someone said that I was cheating and I was actually just that good, I would take it as a compliment, So I'm not sure if that was right or not. I don't really want to like go around. I'm not going to say who it is or anything, but yeah, like the way there's so many different forms of cheating, and when does it not become cheating, right? Like preflop charts. I mean, should we be allowed to use preflop charts? I think it's awful for poker, because then once you allow preflop charts, what's next? Then we're able to have like flop sims, like what. It just keeps like trickling down, right? And there's only 4 streets to poker, and the first street is just completely okay to just have charts to play with pre-flop. And yeah, that's been like a big issue for me for a long time. And you know, it's kind of sad, but whatever. I'm still out there clicking buttons trying to fuck people up.
That's good to hear. One of the first podcasts, I think actually the first podcast when I rebooted this last year, we had Olivier Bousquet on, and we talked about what the line should be, and we talked a little bit about that kind of thing.
I play with him a lot, and he's improved a lot. I mean, he's one of the best players here now. And then when he first moved here, he was not good at cash at all, and he's put a lot of hard work in. You know, so he's like a top level 6-max cash player now. And yeah, there's no way that I would think I don't think he's using any charts or cheating like that. I just think he's improved a lot.
What do you think about steroids? No, I'm just kidding. I don't think I've done that road. I like Olivier a lot. I think he's someone that really tries to protect the community and do the right thing. And he's been a vocal opponent of things like pre-flop charts, and that we need to try and protect the game and the sanctity of the game and from essentially what has become cheating. Pre-flop charts, I've said this before, but basically it's weird for me because when I started playing poker, we didn't have any solutions. Mm-hmm. So the charts that you made were really shitty for starters. There was almost not even, I don't even think the first charts had mixes. You just did it or you didn't.
Yeah.
And so you sat down and you had, and by the way, the site's allowed, it was in the terms of service, you were allowed to have pre-flop charts. It was not banned 15, 20 years ago, whatever, 12 years ago. And so you'd sit there, you'd have your shitty chart, and then you'd follow it, and then you'd be, oh, this is a 3-bet, and you 3-bet with your ace jack or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so it's weird to me because that was the standard for so many years that we're like, okay, well then it was okay. We kind of said it was okay. The site said it was okay. And now that is expressly cheating. And I guess the thing is, it makes me feel like, was I a cheater all those years, even though I was following the rules of the site and it was part of the community? Was that okay or not? Well, at the time, everyone told me like that's what people did, and now it's like we're going back the other way towards we shouldn't have these things, and I think we probably shouldn't have these things. It's just the evolution of what we decide to allow or not allow as a community has changed somewhat drastically.
Yeah, and I mean the format being offered by all these sites is very dinosaur-esque. You know, it's the same thing all the time. It's 100 big blind max, 40 big blind min. There's no other option, right? And then when games break, when the bad player loses his money, it's a new table starting, and it's just the same thing over and over again, right? There's no cap tables, there's no shallow tables, there's no ante tables, there's no deep tables, or one side has deep tables, but there's still no ante. It's just a very dry, solvable format over and over and over again. So it just becomes easier to use these services, you know, the RTA type stuff, the charts, to really like gain an edge on the field now.
But how can we really move away from that? Because the reality is with poker, you have to put up the games that are the most popular to play.
Yeah.
And so it's clear recreational players don't want to play Badoogie.
Yeah.
They want to play Texas, no limit Texas Hold'em. Yeah.
I mean, I do think that like what GG has done with those flash pots, or maybe that was Galfon site. You know what I'm talking about? Where they just, instead of doing rakeback, they'll just put 30 big blinds in the pot and deal everyone with the blinds out there or whatever.
Yeah, recreational players loved those. That's why none played there.
Yeah, sure. I think GG does something like that though. I just wish that there was some other, you know, some type of. Look, the reality is, no matter what game type you put out there for no limit, people are going to solve it. But I just recommended to the high roller. I was talking to Brent Hanks and was telling him, you know, maybe you guys try changing up the payout structures so that your final tables aren't as stale and boring to watch. These guys fold ace jack suited off 7 bigs because this other dude has 4 bigs. You know, maybe you make first place 50% and ICM. It's just a different. Like I don't know how much it's going to change stuff because I'm not some big math wizard. But I would imagine that people would be going for it more. There's less of this fine art that some people appreciate watching this ICM stuff, and other people would, I imagine, just think it's really boring watching these guys try and outfold each other. I find it somewhere in the middle. Like I enjoy it and I think it's fascinating, but it's also at the same time kind of boring, right? Like, what do you think? I know you don't really watch that much, but like, or how about having a tournament that doesn't announce the payout structure until like 50% of the field's gone or something?
Well, so variable payout structure, basically like you RNG it up, so you get down to a fourth of the field, and then we just let the thing go, and we say what the structure. I mean, there could be some potentially cool outcomes to that.
Yeah. Because people playing tournaments are already degens in the first place, so I feel like they would love that.
So I'm kind of funny where my favorite form of poker is basically if I'm hanging out with my friends, like I just had my bachelor party a week and a half ago, and basically I'm like hanging out, and then we just do some like I'll just play my buddy Jake Abdallah. We'll just play some 300, 600, and we'll just make up games. So it'll just be. Lately, we've been doing lots of like 6-card 08, where if certain cards come out, different things happen. So we're just playing like 300, 600 with all these random rules. There was a great hand where he insisted on this rule where 4 low cards came out that the low just scoops everything. And he was insistent. And I said, okay, 3 hands later, 4 low cards come out and I've got the nuts. And he ends up putting a bunch of money in. I say, okay, I got the nuts. He goes, well, I have the high. I said, that's not high. It's low only.
You're playing
like,
limit.
Oh shit.
You're playing limit, right?
Limit. Yeah, limit. Yeah. So for me, I like different games where I have to think about stuff, and we have a game at the lodge every Wednesday. It's 2040. It's not a big game or anything, but we can just make up games. And I guess when I do play poker, I like when I get to think about things in new ways, and I get to try different stuff. And because with no limit, I agree with you. I obviously agree with you. I think most people that have played poker for a living agree with you that when you do the same situations over and over and over and over and over and over again, it gets pretty boring. It basically just becomes you're clocking in.
You know, I've been thinking about this a lot more recently. I think is part of the reason why I've shied away from wanting to, know all the answers is that I've seen people that figure out all the answers to this game and then they just quit playing because they get so good that either no one plays them or they just don't find it interesting anymore and they move on to something else. Or they move on to another game, but a lot of times they just stop playing as much, or quit altogether, right? And what I love about poker is just trying to figure out the like the math problem, or I wouldn't say math problem, but find a solution to this hand and go through my memory and this player profile and what sizing do I think will work, what sizing do I think he'll call with if I have it, or what I need to do when I'm bluffing. It's like I have some theoretical background just from playing online cash for all these years. I think you're like forced to have decent fundamentals or else you're going to get destroyed. And I did work with a coach for a year weekly that I would have run stuff for me. And it kind of got me up to speed on certain things that I don't think I was doing well. But I really love just trying to figure out the game myself. All these learning tools, all these solvers, that's like the beauty of playing live poker too, right? So I think that's the future. We show up, we play in person. A lot of times in these live games, the formats can be changed with 3 blinds or straddles, or bomb pots, whatever. A lot harder to solve 3 and 4-way pots. Like the more unique the situation is, the better it is for my skill set. But you put me in a single raise heads up pot, 3-bet pot, whatever, for some wizard, like they're going to be having the edge on me.
Well, that's because it's about memorization, and really what you're saying is you like the problem solving aspects to poker, and that resonates with me too. I love that, having to come up with your own solutions for how you're going to do things and prevent certain tactics, and that's I think at least to me that's the beauty of the game, is figuring out how you're going to deal with these complex problems that you kind of have to figure out sort of either on the fly or without sort of computer assistance. But let's get back to the cheating thing here for a moment. So what are your thoughts here on the following hand that was played on Poker Go's stream, or was it Triton, or was it Poker Go? I think it was Poker Go.
GG it was Poker. Super high roller ball on Poker Go.
Okay, super high roller ball. So basically the hand goes as follows. Ali Imsirovic opens in the cutoff with ace-9, no diamond. Paul Phuas looks down next to him at ace-5 with the ace of diamonds. The big blind calls. Adamo calls in the big blind. Ali c-bets on a 6-4 deuce, 3 diamond board and then jams over a check raise with ace
No,
nine.
I think you just clicked it back.
Sorry, clicked it. Sorry,
Yeah.
clicked it back over. I meant re-raised.
Yeah.
Clicked it back over the check raise.
I remember watching it live and being like, man, this dude is the sickest. Like, yeah. There's also another one where he squeezes queen 5 suited and Schindler back raises ace queen off after flatting the button, and then Ali 5-bet shoves. So I don't know. I mean, Ali's clearly not just like some robot. He's definitely just in there blasting sometimes. There's no way he could have seen the cards that hand, but I also think that this video is like a little sus, and and you know, it's easy to chop this stuff up and be like, oh, he definitely saw his hand. I mean, those guys are sitting pretty far apart. Phuas has been playing poker forever. Is he really just exposing his hand like that? I don't know. I mean, I'm not, and it's not looking good for him because of the way this hand plays out and all these other allegations. I'm not saying he's innocent, but it's really easy to be like, oh, he 100% was cheating there. I mean, what do you?
Well,
think?
it's not 100%, but it's sort of
it's definitely really high.
A pattern of behavior.
Yeah,
I'm quoting this from an Alex Foxen tweet. Basically, he said, "Poker blacklist can't come soon enough. Ali is banned from GG for multi-counting on RTA." That is true. I've witnessed numerous chip dumps to horses and many suspicious changes in play from people known to be as horses deep in MDTs. You said about another incident where you said that there was an account or one of his horses or something that won something, some kind of similar thing here, I guess. And so when you tie these things together with what happened in this hand, it also starts to become a pattern of behavior.
Yeah.
How do you handle that? So and what I've always done is if I see someone's cards, if they fold, I say what I think I saw, so that everyone has the same information. And if they're in the hand, I'll say that I saw his cards, but I don't say the card.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is the appropriate way to deal with a situation where you see someone's cards?
I mean, I think that's pretty standard. I think I've always done the same thing. Yeah, it's just I don't think I've ever really been put in like a big spot like that to be tempted. You know, they're playing. I think that was the final table, right, where they're playing for 3-something million, and the edges are so small. So, I mean, I'm not a saint here, right? Like you got to protect your cards, but I do think that I would say something, but I don't know. Maybe like a younger me wouldn't. I don't know. If I'm just being honest with you, you know, I'll just be straight up.
If the moment gets too big, it can be hard to do the right thing, and sometimes he gets lost in the moment a little bit when something happens. Like I was on a stream where I was playing high stakes, or I was playing one of the shows, and 2 queens of clubs came out, and then I remember looking at that spot. I remember playing the hand, and I was collecting the pot. Someone says 2 queens of clubs. And I look at the board, and I'm like, what are they talking about? And I look at it, and I'm like, oh my God, there's 2 queens of clubs out there. And when I watched back myself in that spot, it looked kind of weird. It looked like I might have known or something. So, but in the spot, I was just so confused. What's happening here? I was just so confused. So there's certainly some degree of maybe the moment can make you look bad, or you don't say the right thing at the right. Obviously, you know, you're human, but having played poker for a long time, I just feel like if you gain an advantage that someone accidentally shows you your cards, then you say something. You don't just put in the light bet 3-bet on the flop because you know that.
Yeah, no, I mean, dude, we're on the same page there. We are. Yeah.
I had a main event once where the guy to my right was showing me his hand every time, and so I would look. The action would get to him. He showed me his cards, and I told him, and he said, "Okay, thanks." And then he did it again. I said, "Hey, I could see it again." He said, "Okay, man." I said,
"Well, sorry, finish."
Sorry, I was just gonna say, basically, like the point was, this guy started getting angry at me, and I could just clearly see his cards every single time. So I had to, you know, not look at him when he's acting in order to not see his cards. Yeah. Kind of ridiculous.
The only reason I really answered the question like that is because my first or second trip to Macau in 2013, I play in the 40-80 US no limit game. I play like a 18K pot versus a guy that this is his first or second time playing poker. He has no idea what he's doing. We both have an ace. I have ace 8. He has ace 7. The cards are tabled on the river where we're chopping with like a board pair. Our kickers don't play, and then the dealer pushes me the pot, and then the guy, like both our hands were tabled for a second. He saw that I had ace 8. He had ace 7, and then he mucked his cards, and the dealer pushed me the pot. And then the pro on my left was like, "Oh, that's so messed up, man. Like that's a chop. You should give him half his money back." And this is, now that I'm 34, I would stop and say, hey, it's a chop. But when I'm 24 years old and I'm spending 24 hours traveling to get to this place to play high stakes poker. And if this guy is going to make a mistake in my favor, I'm going to take the money. I don't know. Like, maybe that's just a bad way to go about it back then. But the younger me was just more like cutthroat and savage about that type of stuff.
I'm not sure.
I mean, what would you do there? The pro to my left ended up calling the floor. They went to the footage. The guy ended up coming back to the poker room. They called him back, and then they gave him his money back for my stack, which was fine. No problem. I had no issues.
You knew in the moment that it was a chop?
Yeah.
Oh, I would definitely say it was a chop.
Yeah. I mean, the guy, yeah.
I'm not just trying to virtue signal here on the podcast. I'm just saying.
Yeah, no problem, man.
Yeah. But I understand when you're younger, you're in a time where you want to try and make money when you can, and yeah, you flew all the way out there and all that stuff. But
yeah, this is also around the time when the stuff started becoming like private too. So you just weren't able to get into any of these games, and now you're in a good game, and something happens in your favor that it's not something I'm proud of, but I'll openly talk about it, right? Like,
yeah, no,
I would never do that now, but at the time I didn't even think twice about it. Yeah.
It is also a little bit different when you're just some random kid versus when you're actually a notable person in the community.
Yeah.
A lot of people in our age range know of you and have a lot of respect for you. And now, obviously, what you do has more impact than when you're just some random kid who's just trying to play poker and make money or whatever. But,
yeah.
All right, so going back to this hand though, so questionable to say the least to put in the white 3-bet without saying anything in this hand, and then the next day he shows up wearing sunglasses for the first time.
That was really weird because I've seen him play so many hours. I've never seen him wear sunglasses, so that was just very strange to me.
Also, Foxen ran the sim on this, and the non-diamond hands never 3-bet, so clearly this is. I mean, okay, I guess it's not 100% he saw this card, but when you see the most important card in the deck in this spot, it's probably kind of reasonable to assume.
Let's say 98%. Yeah.
All right. So the question kind of comes back to the central topic here with regards to cheating, and the point of Foxen's tweet was, should we have a blacklist for people when they've done certain things where we don't allow them to play in tournaments? And should soft playing with your significant other be eligible for entry onto said list?
Well, I don't think you're ever going to get a blacklist, right? Like this is never happening. None of this is ever happening. I mean, I credit these guys that try to make poker a sport, but I'm just going to be honest with you. It's not a sport. It's not. It's gambling. So I mean, whenever there's a lot of money involved and people are going to try and cheat you out of your money, it is what it is. Like, I mean, there's very well-known players, Hall of Fame players that are long-time cheaters. That I'm not going to say their names, but people know who I'm talking about, and it's part of the game. It's like, it's that. I mean, I got cheated for 150K in a private game. I got stiffed for 50K playing in a private game where I flipped with this guy all night and beat him out of 60K flipping, and he didn't pay me like 40-something thousand of it. I mean, there's people trying to angle you all the time, So I guess, experiencing some of that before that Macau situation where I had something happen in my favor was like, well, like, fuck this guy, I'm going to take the money, It's kind of like makes you more jaded about the gambling industry. Yeah, I mean,
Lord knows
I think that like I've been in the underground scene a lot more than you, and been around this type of stuff more, and played in cheated games, been cheated before, been stiffed before. I think we both obviously played against bots online. I'm sure we both have been cheated online. I was playing PLO on Stars in the Zoom games when there was like a card sharing ring going on in the 2-5 Zoom, where you're running under EV because they have card removal. Yeah, it's sad that it's part of the game, but it's kind of like a part of any like sport, right? Yeah, like baseball, steroids. I mean, if you don't think people are using stuff, you think Tom Brady's all natural, like maybe he is, but it's a little questionable, right?
He does seem to age gracefully.
Yeah.
Sports are a good analogy in that there are people taking advantage of substances to get an edge.
But I will say that like live poker tournaments are the only pure thing left where they're not private. They should be as fair as possible. You know, these online stuff, there's a lot of ghosting, there's a lot of chip dumping, there's a lot of RTAing, there's a lot of charts. Same thing for the online cash, and the online or the live cash games are very like political, private. It's very tough to play big in a public environment. So the biggest you can play publicly and the purest form of poker is live tournaments. So something like this happening in a live tournament is really bad. I mean, it's awful.
Stuff still happens in live tournaments, though.
Yeah.
Chip dumping. You mentioned Schindler earlier.
But it's harder to chip dump. Let's say you're playing like $1,000 or 1,000 person 3,500 WPT. I mean, how much like cheating is actually going on in that? I mean,
probably not very much, but I'm just saying that there can still be instances, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like apparently, if what Fox is saying here about Ali is there's chip dumping with horses going on, that can happen in a live tournament. Or do you remember the 10K heads up 6 years ago or something like that, where the guy was marking cards?
Yeah.
He was marking cards and he'd play really slow, and he played a bunch of guys, and they all thought, you know, he was just kind of a fish, but he was apparently marking the cards while he was moving them around, and then he'd mark the deck, and then he would know what the cards were, and he was just on a huge run, and then he just got taken out of the tournament one day. I think in the final day of the tournament, they just took him out of the tournament. But stuff like that still happens. It's just a lot harder to do when you play live poker.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
All right, I think we've spent enough time on this topic. Let's move on to talk about shot clocks. Shot clocks, I think, are really good for the game of poker because when you look at poker, and let's compare poker to something like chess. In chess, everyone understands the more time someone gets to think, the more of an advantage it is. It's pretty clear cut. You can make better moves if you can analyze for longer. Poker really is the same thing. It's a strategy game where you're trying to make the best possible, highest quality decision. The more time that you get, the more of an advantage that is. So it creates this problem where players are incentivized to take as much time as they can to increase their own win rate at the expense of people at the table, the expense of pace of play, the expense of basically the people that play faster sacrifice EV for game quality that people that tank then absorb. What are your thoughts on shot clocks in general? Obviously, leading the witness a little bit here with my personal thoughts. What are your thoughts on shot clocks in general? Should they be more common in poker?
Yeah, I mean, I was glad when they started implementing them, but at this point, they're being abused to the point where it's not fun to watch even stuff with a shot clock. Because I used to say that I wouldn't watch any live stream stuff unless there was a shot clock. Well, pretty much all of them have it now, but even now it's so tough. I mean, like Vogel saying at the final table of the super high roller roll, it's so unbearable. Even some of these other guys, it's so unreal to watch a hand just go limp, blind versus blind, check flop, check turn, one big blind bet river fold, and the hand takes like 5 minutes. It's insane. I mean, it really is insane. I mean, I know these guys are like factoring in all these things, but man, it's unbearable. Like I haven't really played many tournaments in the past 5 or 6 years, and I wanted to play quite a few this summer, but we'll see. If you put me in that environment and that's happening a bunch, I'm just not gonna want to play as many events. And I specifically remember I played World Series Europe 25K in 2015. It was a 45-minute levels, like decent structure, nothing amazing, but we were playing so slow that we were effectively playing at turbo, and just with the cash game background, I realized I can't play these things unless I'm going to focus on tournaments, because the structure is not good, even when it is quote unquote good, because people are just playing so slow. I mean, we might have gotten 15, 18 hands a level. You're playing a turbo. I mean, the tanking was just unbelievable. So yeah, I mean, you weren't much of a tanker, were you?
No, I was never much of a tank. I would say I was always kind of in the middle-ish.
Yeah.
I guess I was always kind of the mind that I want to make sure I take enough time to make my decisions where I can standardize stuff, but I don't want to be annoying.
Yeah.
So I kind of tried to thread that line. It's weird with tanking because I think a lot of the guys that were most notorious for tanking, I think of the Doc Sands of the world, eventually they just got berated into not tanking anymore because it's just too brutal to play with people like that. And I think when you're a professional poker player, you still do need to kind of be aware of the types of things that will really annoy people and might not get you into games. Tournaments are actually a little bit different, and it's good. It's a good thing overall that you can't decide who plays and doesn't play a tournament. But the problem with that then is there's really no incentive. Let's say you only play tournaments. There's no incentive for you at all to not take every last second. Why not just spend every single 30-second of your shot clock every time? What's your incentive?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. I feel similarly about all the like staring down when tanking too at the highest level, because it seems like more of a mental warfare, because you see these guys staring at each other and then rolling for their frequencies by checking like their chips or whatever they're using to RNG, and it's like, why are we staring at each other? We're just trying to like hit the frequencies on all the homework that we've done. And this is just a complete waste of time, because you so rarely see people deviate because they have a read. So why are we just staring each other down like nonstop? I find that part kind of funny.
The staring thing makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever, and it's hilarious to watch two guys just stare each other down. What was the recent one? It was Foxen and Chidwick. And Pads was tweeting round one, and then he was giving a breakdown of who won each staring contest. And there was in the fourth round, somebody thought the staring contest was over, but then it was a fake out and it wasn't, so they won the round. I'm thinking this is just absolutely ridiculous. That we're at a point in poker where we're just going to stare each other down and hope that we get some kind of tell. I've always been more defensive with tells than trying to read them. So my approach to poker has always been, I'm going to beat my opponents. I believe in my strategy, so I don't need to try and get tells. I'm not going to try and get them. Not that they don't exist. I hear people misquote me on that. Doug doesn't think tells exist. Obviously, they exist, but my strategy is going to be, don't give off any tells and be consistent in my actions and motions.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I make big bets, I'm just going to focus on the table and stare at a card. And if you want to just stare me down and you can have, I don't even know you're doing it because I'm looking at the table.
I'm the same. I've always been the same way. I've always been the same way. I just always look at the middle card, and then when I'm watching the other person, I just watch their hands and like their arm, and that's it. Like, I don't really look. Obviously, if it's like a weaker player, I'm gonna observe their whole body because they're giving away a lot more. But like the higher up you go and like class of player, I'm gonna not look into that stuff as much and just try and focus on what I've been looking at my whole life. So I mostly do the same thing though. They just like try not to give anything away. I'm not a big live tell person, even though I've played a lot live.
Especially on the river, once you're just staring at a card, it's easy to just forget that you're even in the hand anymore. That's a nice 5 of spades, and you're just staring at the 5 of spades. And then at some point, if I'm value betting or bluffing, I don't even know I'm just looking at the 5 of spades, and then I'm just 5 of spades, and it's almost comforting. It's almost like comfort. You hit this level where you don't even know what you have anymore. You're just staring at a card.
Yeah, you just go dead inside.
That's great. Just a quick dead inside. But anyway, back to shot clocks. It seems like the best suggestion, and this has been suggested a bunch of times, I don't think there's a real implementation strategy that makes sense, is the chess clock idea, where basically you have a set amount of time, it always runs when it gets to you, and then if you want to tank somewhere, that's fine, but you only get a certain amount of time. That feels like, in a perfect world, the best option, but realistically, how is that possible? So how do we really incentivize this? How do we change the incentive structure here where players actually care to not kind of ruin the game environment for viewers or other players at the table?
I mean, I think Brent made a good suggestion during some of these streams this past week about having 10-second shot clocks pre. And then if there is a raise, I think then you have more time, or maybe it's if you get re-raised, then you have 30 seconds. But even Triton did 20 seconds for the $1 million tournament. That was much better. I do think that 20 makes a big difference between 20 and 30. I think 20 is fine. Do you think 20 is fine? I mean, I would like 10, but yeah.
20 seems fine. I think that if you're the kind of person that wants to play a $100,000 tournament, or 25 or 300 or whatever it ends up being, then you probably should be the kind of player that, Lord forbid, you only get 20 seconds to make an important decision. You're going to be able to do it, or don't play 100Ks. That seems like a pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
Reasonable
I agree.
offer.
I mean, I think you just need to speed up each street and then give more time extensions, and then you're fine.
The problem with some of the stuff in theory, though, is when you just think about the number of players and the number of streets and the number of decision points, even with a 20-second shot clock, hands can take minutes that might not be necessary. But I guess at some point you're going to have to just suck it up and realize that there's going to be some guy tanking to some extent.
Yeah, I mean, so you're saying you think that if shot clocks were across the board, that people would end up taking more time than they do now if they're not like tanking players? Or
no, I'm not saying that. I think shot clocks overall are good. I do think that when you have a longer shot clock, like the 30 compared to the 20, a game sort of emerged where people would take until the last second to make their decisions. That definitely happened. So there were some decisions I think people wouldn't have taken 30 before that they will take 34 now. I think 20 solves a lot of those problems, but I don't feel comfortable enough. Like basically when I'm thinking about my experience, when I'm thinking about high rollers and tanking, I'm thinking about my personal experiences back when I played them, which it's been a few years now since I played the high roller scene. So I don't think maybe I'm the best guy to ask. I'm just trying to think about ways that we can actually fix the problem. But I guess shot clocks are a step in the right direction. What about this question? What about in smaller stakes tournaments? What about in like a 10K or in a 5K or in something like that? Should we have shot clocks in those as well?
I mean, I would like them in everything, but I guess I can understand how that might hurt field sizes. People might not be comfortable playing with them. I think for now they need to be staying in the higher buy-in events, and maybe experimented with the farther you go down. Because an amateur player might not feel comfortable making all their decisions that quickly.
Yeah, I guess for an amateur player, if they're really new, then you wouldn't want it. But I think someone that even plays a couple 100 hours would probably
be okay with that.
Probably, yeah.
It seems pretty mandatory, but it's just the way life is moving faster and faster and faster that we have this stale, slow game to speed it up. Right? It's just like seems like the next evolution where the whole card cam is huge for poker, and a faster shot clock should be phenomenal for poker in terms of a viewing experience.
Yeah, it's definitely better for viewers.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about poker content, viewers, it's tough because viewers aren't putting money up they aren't risking their money. So you always have to think about with poker content, it has to be player first, viewer second, because they're actually risking real money to play.
Yeah.
That makes it a little bit different than in like basketball, where players getting paid millions of dollars because people watch. And so that's the whole point is essentially the viewer experience, really. Very different with poker, where you end up having a lot of different problems because people have money at stake. And the most common problem in a lot of these high stakes games, particularly with shows, is that you end up with people want to the lineup, and then if someone drops, they drop, or it shuffles around, and then there could be a domino effect where one guy drops and then it just topples over the rest of the dominoes where no one wants to play. But there's not great ways around that. At the lodge, we're doing a thing where we basically don't tell people the lineup. The only exception might be if someone comes to town or wants to be promoted or whatever, we might promote them. But we're not going to say your seat X and here are all the people. Basically, if you want to come play at the lodge on the stream, everyone's welcome to come play. You're gonna get a random lineup. They're all pretty reasonable. You can play if you want. If you don't, that's cool too. But we're not just turning this into we're gonna just try and bum hunt some guy, and then the next guy up doesn't play because he doesn't play. And then I mean I've seen this stuff happens all the time in Vegas and LA and whatever else.
Yeah, that's I think you were supposed to play in one of the streams out at Live at the Bike that happened, right?
Yeah, good memory.
Yeah, I used to love watching those streams. I also feel like the streams now have become like too amateur heavy, where I will watch these streams all the time. And now, like, I mean, I love watching Garrett play, but do I want to watch Garrett play with like 7 people that don't know what they're doing? It's like, it's not really that interesting. I think.
How about this? Garrett with 6 people that don't know what they're doing, and Poker Bunny.
And Poker Bunny? Oh yeah, there we go. I thought you were gonna say yourself.
No.
I think it's best when it's always best when you have like a 50-50 split, or even like a 60-40 split in the pro favor, because for me it's fun to see elite player 1, elite player 2 with some like random guy clicking buttons in the middle, and then just see how these high level players deal with this unique formation that doesn't happen just in like heads up bots and stuff. Yeah, so I've kind of lost my love for watching those streams. Even like high stakes poker, the recent episodes that have come out, I just think they're pretty awful. Like I just think it's like, what is going? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I love Poker Go and their content's great. I love it. I'm always endorsing them on Twitter for free. I have no affiliation with them, but this new season of high stakes poker has been really boring. Yeah.
I think as a poker fan, you have to at least support in some capacity what Poker Go is doing, just because the scale that they're trying to put things on, the number of events, the amount of money that goes into it, how nice the stage is, how good for poker to have them. So at some level, I think you have to support Poker Go. I think some of the things that they've done in the past have been not great. I think going after people for sharing content. I think some of the legal stuff that they threatened and emailed people with, and basically, I mean, they even emailed me where it was like, Doug, to get the rights to these hands you've already reviewed, you have to sign this thing, and then the thing had a bunch of caveats, including you're not going to make fun of us.
I do think they've done a really good job putting their content out on YouTube for free now, and not always doing it. Yeah.
The direction they're going I think they've gotten rid of some people that have made the company better.
Yeah.
And I don't think that they're as litigious with a lot of this stuff. So it seems like they're headed in the right direction. I think Brent's an awesome guy at Poker Go. I think he does an amazing job. He's been the saint of that company for many, many years, had all the stuff he's had to deal with. So overall, I'm a Poker Go fan, despite some of the things that have happened in the past. High stakes poker specifically, it feels like what we're doing with high stakes poker now is we're trying to capture the feelings and emotions of poker 10, 15 years ago when we
I literally was just going to say the same thing. Yeah.
It feels like we're trying to capture the same thing. And guess what? Poker is not like that anymore. And now, instead of this small room with bricks of cash and well-known people and a good chunk of pros and business guys and people playing because it was prestigious and this is the show to play on, it's super overproduced. It's let's try and get this lineup that makes people happy. It's we need to fulfill all these quotas of stuff. Let's cater to certain people. And when I played, it was, I mean, look, like I mainly played because Maury just said, Doug, you already have money here for playing Negroni. Why don't you play in high stakes poker? And they could put me in some of the edits and stuff. I said, sure. And I sit down to play, and they're just bitching the whole time. Why are there so many pros here? I thought this was going to be with lots of business guys, and now there's a pro at my table. And he's a pro, and the people are just freaking out and getting upset. And
I feel like when you sign up for those things, you're not. The whole point is to. That's not the point, you know.
If you want to play on high stakes poker, shut the fuck up.
That's what I mean.
Put the money up and play some goddamn high stakes poker, and don't complain that, oh no, there's a pro on your leg. It's high stakes poker.
It's a privilege to be on that show too. You should have no control, or you shouldn't care what the lineup is. And even if you're a losing player in the field, it's such an experience, like a lifetime experience to play on that show. There's very few people that get to play on that show. It's a lot of the same people, right? So if you get into that show, like I played that show, I game select really hard. I play that show regardless of lineup, just for an experience. You know, I love to play that show. Yeah.
All right, we'll get in touch with Maury. We'll get you on there.
Yeah, me and Maury were boys back in the day, so maybe
boys.
Yeah.
Nice. How did that happen? How did the?
Well, just from like do all the filming and stuff, because he did the stuff for the World Series.
Makes sense.
So yeah, like tons of conversations with him, and yeah, like awesome guy.
Yeah, great all around dude. But going back to high stakes poker, now when you have people that no one really knows, a lot of these guys, and then you've got business guys that are really trying to make sure that they have a good lineup, and people are complaining. And when I played a half day. I knew Rick Solomon was going to get my seat because he won't play at the table with me or whatever it was. I think I called the cops on him sometime. And then people are complaining that he's not there and I'm there and there's too many pros. And I just said to the table, look, guys, I'll leave right now. I don't care. This is a horrible experience. I'm fine. I'm sure that didn't make the cut, but I said, I'll just leave. I don't care. I'll leave. If you don't want me here, that's fine. I barely want to be here myself. There's no soul in this game. It's super overproduced. It's a bunch of people that are all just looking for edge. No one cares. This is high stakes poker. The soul of this show is dead. And I think it's kind of hard to take back what was so special from 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, because people were playing so outrageous back then too. Now it's like, there's not too many interesting hands. Sometimes they're showing hands where someone just steals the blind so they can show table talk because there's no interesting hands to really show. So yeah, I mean, it'll be impossible to recreate that the days of people just putting tons of money in without the nuts. It's just not the way the game's played anymore.
We need to get some main event winners in there that don't know what they're doing. Am I right?
Yep.
All right. What do you think? What are your thoughts on the rest of the poker streaming landscape today? Any shows that you like? What do you think about what Hustler is doing? What do you think about? I mean, the Bike's apparently relaunching. Anything else that you're watching these days?
Yeah, so I watch the live at the Bike all the time because I thought that they had a really good dynamic of like Dan Zak, Art Papanzian, or I'm probably botching his last name, but really good player. Chris Brewer came up through that show, and then Garrett, and then you would have a few other like elite players hopping in, and then one or two spots, and that was really fun to watch. And those guys battled so hard. And now, like what we were touching on before, it's just I don't really watch anymore because it's just too recreationally heavy, and I just don't find it as interesting. Like sometimes it'll be funny to watch hands, but I've been watching amateurs mess up hands for a long time, so it's not like nothing new.
But then there's also this blend, because if you watch someone that's a perfect solver play poker, that's not exactly super interesting either, right? I feel
I'm
like
not saying I want to watch that either. No, I don't even think that. Yeah, but I guess I don't mind having like one or two of those guys in there, and then watching them play versus the fully exploit or like the mix exploit solver guys. I think that's fascinating. Like I think it's okay to have those guys in there. I mean, you don't want to have 6 of those guys, but I think it's cool to see what the human robot does versus Garrett or some of these other guys.
it is fun when hands go off the rails and you have hands that go down. Like there was one of my favorite hands that I've been at the table for, where Matt Kirk and Andrew Roble played a huge pot on one of the shows, where I want to say
I know this hand. Yeah.
I don't even remember the cards. All I remember is the concept. It was like open 3-bet, 4-bet, Matt Kirk 5-bet, and Roble just knew that he was completely full of it. And it was, I think, an ace high flop or king high flop or something like that. And Matt Kirk bet the flop and Roble jammed. And their hands are irrelevant. They had like, one of them had like king high, one had queen high, just offsuit garbagey hands, both of them. That was a real hand. That hand almost looked staged.
Yeah.
That's a real hand that happened, where Roble was just thought, there is simply no way that this guy has it here. He simply does not have it here. I'm going to put the last chip in. And when he bet the flop, he decided to rip it in, and Matt Kirk snap folded.
You know what, Doug? I feel like we're the old crusty men talking about how good it was back in the day, and now these new wizards are just like, these guys are dust.
The new wizards are dust?
No, I'm saying that's what they're saying about us, talking about how good it was back in the day before the solvers came out.
Yeah, but stuff like that is interesting. I mean, that was a phenomenal hand. As a viewer, if you got to see that hand, that's a treat. That's one for the. I mean, that's got to be a top 10 hand ever on any content. It was pure bluffing in its purest form for a lot of money. They were pretty deep.
Yeah. Roble's sick, man.
Roble is sick.
Yeah.
I hold out hopes to maybe one day get him on the pod. I don't know if that's ever going to happen or not, but one day it'd be good to talk with him. I still, by the way, have to ask him about Bilzerian. I got a lot of questions for him regarding that.
Nice.
Just to ask Roble. But hands like that make for good content, though. When you do have the guys that are willing to go off the rails, away from solver land, and embrace the moment of, this guy just doesn't have it. I think that is very good for a stream.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of the problem that I still have today when I'm playing poker, is that sometimes I fall into that trap too much, where you don't really need to be playing these leveling wars versus certain guys. I mean, it's fine to do that versus recreational players. But yeah, like the closer you get versus tough competition, it's better to just roll the number and let it decide for you.
That's something that I've actually really enjoyed about the solver era is you don't have to worry as much about what your opponent is trying to do because you just counter them with as close to an optimal strategy as you can. And it takes away a lot of the stress of some of those kinds of leveling games, because when I played poker, when I was coming up in 13, 14, whatever, and heads up, you had to really care about what your opponent was doing because we didn't know what correct was. So how much were they opening? How much were they defending? How much were they three betting? What were their folds like in basic spots? How much were they c betting? What sizes were they using? Like those were things you had to really care about because you didn't have an output. You couldn't after the session pull up what was the answer. You had to really care, like what's he doing? How can I beat this? And so the solver era, one of the upsides is that you don't have to be as worried about that. You can say, okay, I'm just going to go with an optimal counter response here and I'll win either way. So that is something that I find calming about playing poker in the modern era.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely nice when, if I make a big mistake versus a top player 8 years ago, and it was just a complete guess on that decision. I'm not saying I'm hitting frequencies on point by any means, but at least I can try and like guess what it is, roll the number, and if I'm wrong, maybe I got the frequency wrong, and I can think about that later, and maybe I'll beat myself up over that. Maybe it's just a pure fold, whatever. But like in game, I'm able to just keep my emotions and not care about losing this pot because I know I have to call some frequency here, and I call, I beat, whatever. So yeah, robot poker, man.
Robot poker. Do you think that robot poker is making it a lot tougher for people to watch? Because I see these kinds of comments all the time where people think this isn't fun. They're just trying to hit some frequency on some hand. What do you mean he's doing this sometimes, that sometimes? Play your hand. Play the man. Play this. What's the balance that we can strike as a community? Because it does suck when, let's say that the best example is the WSOP Main Event. Someone butchers a hand, and then I see 17 tweets instantly. What's this idiot doing with his, whatever hand? Should we be overanalyzing people's decisions so much? And does it in a way make it worse for the viewer to do that? Or is it better?
I mean, good question. I think that, I think it's good. People talking about hands on social media is always good for poker, even if it is going to be this negative backlash. I feel like it's kind of always been like that. But I mean, honestly, part of the reason I stopped posting on social media pretty much altogether is because you could literally say it's sunny outside and someone's going to be like, dude, you're insane. I saw one cloud, blah, 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 whatever. It's like I just can't say like anything right unless you're just in the middle all the time. I'm sure you've dealt with this a lot because you're a very opinionated person. I'm sure you've posted things that have been like you've gotten tons of negative feedback on. But it is good for engagement, right? So like I don't think it's a bad thing.
Yeah, there aren't many people that manage to escape the wrath of anger online. One of the only people that I can think of in poker that does it is Garrett. He's basically the only guy.
Yeah.
Jason Kuhn, I guess, as well.
Yeah.
Outside, and by the way, that's mainly because those guys are very, very tactful with what they say. When they say something, they're very specific. They don't enter into a lot of really dicey territory, or and I mean, respect to both of them. That's the reason why people like them so much, and they don't end up in the fray. And then I think you have like a very wide spectrum, and then you have people on the other side. They're the people like Negreanu, who's had a lot of opinions about a lot of different things, and other people will dislike him for his takes there or whatever.
Yeah.
I've always been on the just willing to say what I think side of things, and a lot of times that will make people angry, and you're going to get negative feedback, and you're going to also get people that you have one take that they don't like, and then for the rest of time they'll just hammer you on everything else that you say because that one thing really annoyed them, or it was really important to them, or maybe there's a thing in poker where people don't like when you make fun of their favorite player. And I mean, look, like the reality is like, I make fun of people all the time. I try to make fun of myself too. If people make jokes at my expense, I'm totally down for that. I think people get too serious online in general, But sometimes I saw a comment in the chat here today. Someone's like, has Doug mentioned that he said Ivy isn't good and then he won a tournament last week? Has Doug mentioned he was wrong? It's like, all right, dude, I put Ivy as my #1 poker player of all time on my top 10 list. We want me to put him like a gap 1 and then 3 after that?
Yeah.
So you're always gonna deal with some people that are angry online. I guess as it pertains to poker content specifically, it does kind of suck, I think, when commentary or the product that a casual viewer watches becomes, oh, here he needs to do this 25% of the time, and then this thing for 15% of the time, and then fold 60% of the time, and now he's randomizing to see which one he does. I don't know how we get past that, because for a viewer, I think that's just too complicated.
Yeah. For
a casual viewer, but it is what's happening, and you can go all the way with it. Like you can go to, like, for the best example is chess. How in chess, you ever watch chess streams?
No, never.
Okay, so I rarely do, but usually during the championship I'll watch just because it's so interesting, or the candidates tournament or something like that, and they get so deep in the weeds. Like I consider myself like I'm a very recreational chess player. I'm not very good, but I like chess. I follow some of the stuff, and they'll be talking strategy, and my mind will just be instantly exploding because I have no clue what anyone's saying the whole time. But that's how chess is done. That's how they do commentary in chess, because that's the real thing. That's how the actual grandmasters play. Do we go that route, or do we go more of the like NFL? You know, if a quarterback is bad, we just say like we try and figure out good things that we can say, like, you know, he's got a lot of charisma. He's gonna get out there. He's got a huge arm. That Nico Mannion, or whatever quarterback it is that you're saying, or Nico Mannion always said that. Anyway, point is, basically, do we go the chess route, or do we go the more like traditional sports route where we just only say good things? What do we do? How do we solve this?
I mean, you need someone. I'm not going to say in the middle, but more towards the sports route. Like I think Schulman does the best job at this of going into strategy without bashing people, but also kind of calling it as it is, all in this. Like he's in the matrix, you know. He's the best. But yeah, I don't think we want to make it too complex, or at least that's how I feel as a viewer. And yeah, I think people love poker because anyone can sit down and play poker, and the more advanced and technical you start making it, I just think people don't want anything to do with it. Yeah, I think it needs to be branded as like a fun gambling game that anyone can win. And the more serious it becomes, like, sure, there's parts where it should be serious, right? Like super high roller bowl, these high tournaments, it can be very sportified, whatever. But in general, that's where I think poker should be pushing towards. And like, as much as I've bashed the World Series for dropping all these buy-ins, and I'm sure they'll have like a $24 buy-in in 10 years, but they've done a good job like promoting the game at a very recreational level. As much as I hate like the 7,000 person $300 tournament running next to me, it's good for poker, you know. So yeah,
I agree with that. It is good to have more events people can play, and to get more exposure for the game,
and to just be able to say, oh, I played the World Series, you know, because the buy-in, you can get so many more people to play at the lower buy-ins. So I mean, I was really, really against that. I feel like they've really watered down their product. I think it's very becoming less prestigious each year. But like at the end of the day, I still love the brand. I'm still going to go try and win more bracelets. Not that I've been one to actually like bracelet chase, but they do still mean a lot. It would still mean a lot to me if I won a bracelet.
This is going to segue very nicely into our next topic here, because I want to talk about the WSOP. One quick note before I did that. I said Nico Mannion. I don't know why. I meant Sean Mannion. Nico Mannion was a basketball player for the Warriors for 1 year and now plays in Europe somewhere. Don't know why I said that. Just want a quick correction. I can see people angry in the chat. And sorry to the Phil Ivey guy in the chat. I recognize Phil Ivey did win more than one tournament. I'm sorry. More than one tournament. Let the record show. Ivey is still the best poker player. Okay, let's talk about the World Series of Poker. We've got a lot of World Series of Poker news over the last year. Obviously, it's been a pretty hectic time for the World Series, I would say. First off, COVID shutdowns. We didn't have the World Series of Poker two years ago. And then last year, we ended up having it in the fall. Also, last year was the final year that we had it at the Rio, moving over to Bally's. What are your thoughts on the direction of the World Series of Poker? Do you think it really matters the location we have it at? Will a piece of your heart always be with the Rio?
No, I don't really care where we play, and like I think it's yet to be seen how it's going to turn out at the new location. Like it should be better in terms of venue space and quality of venue, from what I'm hearing. But obviously, people are concerned about the parking, right? So I would think that there's more recreational traffic having it on the strip, but it really just hurts the pros renting houses or the locals that are driving to play. But I would think a lot of the recreationals are staying on the strip, or right. I mean, if people are flying in to play an event and they're a recreational player, they're staying at a casino most likely. So I would think it'd be good for that. I don't know Vegas well enough to know how bad the traffic's going to be, but
the strip tends to be about the worst place for traffic.
Well, I know that obviously, but I know that there's back roads to get to.
Yeah, you have like Dean Martin, and you have what's the other big one? Howard.
Yeah.
Something Howard Hughes.
I'm kind of like indifferent. I think it's time will tell, right? I don't have any hot take on whether it's going to be good, but I liked playing at the Rio. I always thought people hated on it like a little too much. Sure, it was a shithole, but it was easy to get to, tons of space. I guess from a security standpoint, it should be much more secure being on the strip in a parking garage that should have cameras. I mean, the security at the Rio was just awful. I know you guys have talked about it before. And then they're charging you to keep money at a box there. They're basically just like promoting their customers to walk in and out of the venue with tons of cash, because it's like, oh, you want to rent this tiny box for 6 weeks, $300. Like it's, and then the guy that has 5K on him is like, fuck that. And then he's someone that can get robbed. So it was happening every year.
Yeah, that's a bad situation. I do think if you're carrying a lot of money, you just simply have to get the box.
Of course I did every summer, but like not everyone's going to be like, oh, I have 10,000, I'm going to put 300 of it for 6 weeks. Like, I mean, even guys with like 20,000, they're just going to be like, fuck that, I'm just going to risk it. And then there's the people that are just walking around with like hundreds of thousands of chips.
I guess you did come to Vegas to gamble, right?
Yeah.
I will say this about Vegas. Overall, I heard very, very few stories of anything bad happening to people that were playing for size.
Mm-hmm.
Very few stories. The only stories that I really heard were Rio parking lot incidents. I heard.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
I know. So in this example, it can only be an upgrade. But outside of that, like, have you heard of anything bad that happened to someone at Aria or Wynn or Bellagio? I have heard almost no stories of anything bad happening to people at those places.
No, I mean, sometimes I feel like I've heard of people getting robbed in bathrooms and stuff. Like Bellagio poker room, the bathroom's right there. So I was always like wary of that because there's no cameras in the bathroom. So
we'd hope.
Yeah.
I've not heard of any bathroom robberies, but it's good to be aware of those.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it was Greg Raymer got robbed at, I think it was the Bellagio where he got pulled into some room.
Yeah, that was a story from a good number of years ago now, but that story's insane. Basically, two guys held him up at gunpoint, pushed him into a room and said, "Give us your money or we're going to shoot you," or whatever. Mm-hmm. And he just said no, and he just ran.
Well, you had Sean Deeb get robbed and a few other people this past year there, but that was a different situation.
That was very different. The Greg Raymer one was, I want to say gunpoint, or at least they threatened. That was by force. The Sean Deeb one was the guy stuck into his room, and I think my understanding was basically bailed when he realized that Deeb was going to wake up, or Deeb was waking up. So a little bit different.
In 2010, my house that I was renting with 2 other roommates got robbed at gunpoint, where there was 4 guys masked and wearing bandanas, whatever, that were asking where I was, because my roommate had the same car as me, just a different color, and I guess they confused whose car was what, thinking that I was home when I was at Borgata. But yeah, like it kind of like makes you think about all these security. It just wakes you up. It makes you become more mature with regards to that aspect of the industry, and not being as, I feel like a lot of people are very loose on the cuff about security with their funds, like in Vegas, you know?
Yeah, and poker in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. So going back to the World Series of Poker, then I think you've said before on Jeff Gross' podcast that or maybe even said this today as well, but basically you're not going to be playing full WSOP summers anymore.
No.
You had your last one a few years ago. What's your game plan for WSOP? You gonna be playing many events, or why the move away from full summers towards just playing certain events?
I wanted to focus on making as much as I could playing online while it's still there, because I do love playing online the most, and I don't think it's going to be there forever, or at least it'll just continue to get worse over time, or in theory it should. So like at the same time, I think COVID kind of sped up how much I missed the social aspect of just playing poker. So I got into a game in the city last week that I plan on playing weekly. Like I hadn't played in New York City in 12 years, and it was so fun to go play. And then I played the Florida WPT in January, and I just loved. I didn't even make day 2, and I just had so much fun. And just like I kind of feel like a recreational player playing. Like I know in a field like that, I'm definitely winning, but I don't know. I'm just having fun with it. So that's how I'm approaching the World Series, right? It's like if I'm gonna play an event in a game format that I'm not that good at, and I'm losing, that's okay. Right? I'm just playing for fun. And most of the events I'm playing, I'm going to be winning in. And I think that's just a healthy way to approach playing tournament poker.
Well, it's nice when you're playing cash games as your main thing on the side, where you know you're going to be consistently winning. The problem with tournaments is the lifestyle becomes very difficult. The losing all the time.
I think that's why I can only go like for a couple weeks, because I don't know if I could go for 7 weeks and just lose every day or most days. I don't know how people do that.
It's a long and serious grind. I don't know how people did that. I played half of a summer once, and it was a lot of poker.
Yeah,
those days are long.
Yeah, I've never played more than like 18 events in a summer. When I say full summer, it's not like I'm playing 30, 40 events, but I'm there for 7 weeks. I'm playing cash, I'm playing online, I'm playing tournaments. But yeah, I've had a few summers where I've done like 16, 17, 18 events. But I think the most tournaments I've ever played in a single year was like 40 or something. So I've never played a ton of events, but yeah, I mean, I just think it's like a healthier mindset to play the ones that you really want to be there for, and like give it your all.
Yeah, I have to go out to Vegas because I have a nice bottle of liquor someone sent me. Nice bottle of whiskey someone sent me as a celebratory gift for beating Negreanu, because they had a bunch of prop bets against Negreanu. Nice. So I have to go out in Vegas at some point here. I'm debating, should I do it this summer? I'm not really sure, but I might. Maybe I'd get in there for one or two events. Just sprinkle it in.
There's no way you're gonna play.
Probably not. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I bet on your match versus Negreanu. I'm not a big like prop better or anything, but it was my biggest prop bet of my life. So thank you.
How'd you do?
For what?
Nice. Okay, good. You're like, oh man, Negreanu got smoked. I really thought it was going. No, just kidding. Yeah. That was kind of crazy. That whole thing happened. It feels like a really weird. That portion of my life just feels so different than everything before and after it. It was like this gradual shift in the content and investing and business, and then stop everything. 6 months of complete nothing but heads up, no limit.
Yeah.
And then right back into where I took off right afterwards. Yeah. Quite the detour.
Yeah, I don't know how you do it. I don't know. I feel like you have your hands everywhere. I can't do that. I tried to kind of start doing that by doing like I was getting into sports betting in 2020 and was trying to, play poker in the morning, early afternoon, and then start focusing on sports in the afternoon. And then you have to like really pay attention an hour before game time. And then now I have all the bets in, and now I want to watch because I'm a sports fan. And then it's just like gambling all day long, and then try to go to sleep and do it all over again. It's just I just have no shot at doing it. Like the only way I could have done it is if I didn't want to watch sports.
Because then once it's in, you're just phoning it in. Yeah, I mean, I enjoy sports a lot too. I'll like flip for sides on games. I have certain teams that I like and whatnot. But
Yeah.
I feel like if you turn that into its own job, it's
Mhm.
gonna take a lot of time to do well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I really enjoyed it. I thought that I was going to make it more part of my income, but it's just too consuming for me. Anything that's 24/7. I mean, poker is 24/7, so that's already bad enough. But sometimes there's just not as much action, or the games aren't as good, and I can take a break. But crypto sports, it's just 24/7. Following injury news, following this rug, that rug. When's the next nuke? Do I have to cover my collateral? Am I going to get liquidated? Yeah.
Yeah, the crypto element to that is very similar, where you can't really unplug. Like,
Yeah.
I sleep at night with a phone that's sole purpose is if Ethereum drops below a certain price, it sets an alarm off. That actually helped a lot, by the way. I slept more soundly once I had that. But you can't kind of unplug and really be out of it. And I think like there is some value with poker where once you're done with your session, that's it. You can just totally unplug. You're not playing.
Yeah.
That's kind of nice.
Yeah. I mean, that's like one thing I don't like about online poker is that there's always games, right? At least if you're playing a live game that runs on these nights and the game breaks and there's no game and that's your sole source of income, there is no distraction. So like I do have like this sickness that I'm addicted to online poker. I have been half my life now. So that's why I always think that I'll play at some capacity, and like the stakes don't necessarily matter. It's just that I just enjoy like plugging in and playing and trying to win. Yeah.
You don't hear many people that are professional poker players say that they're addicted to playing. What
Yeah,
makes you say that?
I'm totally addicted to playing. Yeah. Yeah, I love it. Yeah. I don't know. I just love it. I think like when I got sober, I played 70 hours a week for 4 years straight, and would like never take any time off. And that's just like what kept me sober. So then as I've gotten older and I play significantly less hours now, it's like I have to figure out how to fill that part of my brain each day that I'm not playing and be happy, right? So it's much easier now that I have a family, because it keeps you busy, right? There's no downtime for me. Just be like, what the hell am I going to do today? Like, I'm taking today off. My wife's at work. I didn't have a dog at the time. What am I going to do? Because I don't really have like a ton of interest, right? So maybe I go to yoga, maybe I go lift weights, maybe I go get a massage, but then what am I going to do the other 12, 14 hours of the day? Yeah, so it's easier now for me to like unplug, take a week off, take 4 days off, whatever, because I have responsibilities and stuff that I have to do. But yeah, the first like 10 years of my career wasn't like that.
What you're saying strikes a chord with me, because I found it. I had a very similar experience where poker took so much of my time in life for so many years that once I put that to the side and I tried to focus on what I really wanted to do, it was tough to kind of figure that out. And so I went through a couple of different phases where I was really busy, or a couple of years ago I wasn't that busy. I kind of focused more on myself, and it is tough to find something that you're passionate about in the same way that you're passionate about with poker when you started playing. It seems like you might still be like this today, but when you started playing poker, you know how it is. It's fully, it takes up your entire life. And basically you love it so much, you love every moment of it. You want to be in it. You want to learn more. You want to play more. You want to win. You want to do all these things. And then it's hard to find things later on in your life that can kind of give you that passion in the same way that poker did.
Yeah. But that also has to come with like financial freedom too, because unless you're really like pressing your finances to the next endeavor where like this is actually going to affect your life if it goes wrong, you'll never be in that same place of your life again, right? Where you're starting your career, you're young, you're hungry, you want to make money, you love the game, and then you play something long enough, you don't enjoy it as much, and now you have the financial freedom, so like the drive to study or do these things just isn't really there, right? So I definitely feel that like I don't love poker as much as I did in the beginning, but I wouldn't say I've like lost the passion all that much. but yeah, like it's basically as soon as the solvers came out, I started approaching poker just significantly different. Like, how am I going to gain edge in different areas? This is studying the stuff I have zero interest in. I don't think that for my personality type, it's going to like really resonate with me that well. So like, sure, if I study it all the time, like, yeah, I'm going to get much better, but I just don't think I'm going to retain the information the way that some of these other guys do, and like execute the way that some of these guys do. So, what other ways can I gain edge is kind of what I started focusing on.
For me in poker, for myself playing poker, now that I'm a partner at the lodge, I do play poker a couple times a week, and I'm going to be playing on the stream twice a week. And there was a week, 3 weeks ago, where I just organized a bunch of 20 to 50, 50, 100 games. And I basically just rented a hotel room nearby, and I just posted up, and I played like 2 p.m. to like 5 a.m. 4 days out of those 5 days, I played until like 5 in the morning. And so I played like, I don't know, 50, 60, 70 hours of poker over 5 days. And I completely cleared my schedule. I said, I'm going to do no content. I'm doing nothing. I'm just playing these games. And there is an aspect to that that's nice when you just lock in, you can focus on it, and you're just here to play. And I don't have to worry about all these things, because one of the things that I find kind of stressful is I do have so many things going on concurrently, and I have to make sure that I'm fulfilling all my obligations, and that I'm, doing the right things with my money, and that I'm running my businesses correctly, and that I feel like I have so many things going on that it is kind of nice, the simplicity of poker, in that I'm just trying to play this hand well right now. I'm just trying to play this hand well right now. You can lock into that, and there's a joy that comes from being able to just hone in on that aspect of it that it is relaxing, I would say.
Yeah, so it's funny that you bring that up, because my wife took the kids to upstate New York to be with her parents for Easter, and she left me here to play with the dog. And I've had 5 straight days of just being a massive degenerate and just like play, sleep, take the dog out, eat, whatever, just grinding. And like, it's just so like that happens a couple times a year for me, and it just reminds me of my old life.
Are you winning?
So I won a lot last week.
No, that's a no.
I won a lot last week, but I lost 23K today. But I won 60K last week, though.
Oh, nice. That's a solid week.
Yeah.
That's a solid week. Moving on to, let's talk about just some personal life stuff. I do a segment here at the end of my episodes now called Have I Mentioned My Personal Life? And I just want to talk about some various stuff going on here. But actually, on today's version of that, I want to talk about your path to sobriety and how long you've been sober for, because it's frankly very impressive that you've been sober for that many years. And I actually remember vividly, do you remember that one night, I don't know how many years ago, 12 years ago, something like that, we went out to Rain, me, you, Gem 87.
Mm-hmm.
Who else was there? There was like 1-2 other guys there, I think. I remember
was this in Palms?
Is that Palms? We hit the club, man.
Yeah, I don't really remember that well. But that's probably because I was so like fucked up. I don't know. Maybe I was just drinking back then. I had 2 periods of sobriety. One now where I don't drink or do anything for 10.5 years, and other one was a little over 3 years, where the first year I didn't do anything, and then the last 2 or so years I only drank very, very seldomly. Always had a low tolerance for alcohol. Rarely got drunk. But towards the end of that, I started going to clubs, and you spend $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 at the club, and you feel obligated to just get wasted out of your mind, or else it just seems like a huge waste of money, and just like societal pressure of like taking shots and all this stuff. So eventually that like made me fail. But I don't remember that. I do remember like playing with you at Bellagio and like meeting you out there. I think you had just moved out there in 2009 or 10, or when did you move to Vegas?
Yeah, 2009.
Yeah,
we only met a couple times. Our paths didn't cross that much, actually.
Yeah.
We played online a lot.
Yeah.
We were in all the same Star Streets. We were both 24 table and away.
I never forget 5-bet shoving ace queen off versus you at 100 or 200 on Stars for like 28,000, like an idiot, and you had aces. But I flopped a queen and an ace high flush draw, And
Oh my God, I remember that. I remember that hand.
I bricked.
Yeah, I remember that hand. I was like, really? Are you this guy? I was gonna go down. I remember that hand. That was a sweat. It was like, oh, I'm like just winning here. And then it was instantly a sweat.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was. But going back to talking about the sobriety. So what made you decide that you had to take that path towards sobriety, and what was the deciding factor for you?
I mean, really, like I've touched on this a bunch over the years, so I don't want to go. I'm not going to go like too into it, but
Sure, cool.
like too into the story, because I feel like a lot of people have heard the story. But I mean, really, just
I bet a lot of people haven't. So, but if you don't want to say it again, that's fine.
That's
too.
okay. I mean, basically, like yeah, I started the year with quite a lot of money. Was losing $400,000 or $500,000 on the year. After I'd relapsed in like a very short period of time. Like I remember I played in Bobby's room for the first time. I lost 90,000. And like, yeah, I was just torching it everywhere. I lost 100K a day on full tilt playing 25-50 heads up versus 2 different German guys. Like I played the GI games high. Not the 500 to 1,000. The GI was playing 40-80 on full tilt. I don't know if you remember before Black Friday.
I remember those 40-80 games though. Those were pretty legendary games. I didn't know Guy played that low.
Yeah, I mean he had so many different accounts that I don't think many people knew it was him. But yeah, so just doing a lot of young, dumb, reckless things, and then eventually I think you just hit a point in these cycles of addiction where you just aren't happy, because in the beginning using drugs it's all like fun and dandy, and then you need more and more and more to like get to the same level you were before, and then you're really just chasing that like original high from the start point, and you're doing all these things just to have like baseline. So that summer I would take Adderall every day, all day long, smoke weed all night long, just so I could go to sleep, wake up the next day, and be burnt out, have no energy, do it all over again, right? So like you get to a point where you're just not happy at all. And like luckily for me, it didn't take that long for this relapse, because I had done this several times in the past, a lot of like shorter bursts. I had like a 2-year run of using a lot from like 05, middle 05 to like 07.
You're talking about weed mainly, or talking about
weed and coke the first time around?
Okay.
And then yeah, the second time was like weed, coke, Adderall, and then eventually oxys, and like oxys just like completely took over my life. Also for a short period of time, like maybe 6 months or something, 5 or 6 months. It's honestly all kind of a blur. It's kind of sad. Like I don't remember certain parts of my life because I was so messed up all the time. But yeah, I mean, it's like luckily I didn't ever overdose. I mean, my close friend, you knew him, Rich Leindecker, overdosed a few years ago. And I mean, that easily could have been me, because he overdosed on the same type of pill that I was using, except for fentanyl wasn't really a thing.
Wait, I'm sorry. I knew that he passed away. We're talking about Richard Leindecker, right? Nutsino or Nutsino?
Yeah, he overdosed on pills laced with fentanyl. There was like yeah.
I didn't know that was public. I just knew that he passed away. I didn't know that there was a source that was ever.
Yeah, there was an article written out in San Diego how there was multiple deaths due to this like one batch that went around too. So yeah,
Holy
it's
shit.
like that really fucked me up, because he was probably like the third most influential person on my poker career, behind Tony, Greg, and Jesse Chinney, and getting me improving over the years. I mean, he let me watch, because at one point I think a lot of people would have said he was the best player, or like top 3, and he would let me watch him play all the time. He would sweat me play. He would sweat me play heads up. He taught me so much, and like we would play versus each other for several years, and he'd always talk hands with me, and like spots that we played, right? So to be able to play against like a top level player, make mistakes versus him or whatever, and then have him talk you through his part of like why he did what he did, it was so like huge, right? Like before the solver and stuff. So yeah, when he passed, it was just really like it was like the first time in my sobriety where I always knew that I could have like guide, you know, but this actually hit home more when it was someone that I was close with that passed away using the same drug that I was using at the end of my relapse, and like, you know, just put it more into perspective, you know.
Yeah, that's really sad. I guess it
Yeah.
has to feel way more real when you were so close to him, and
Yeah, and I
obviously,
had no idea that he was using, and I doubt that he was like like an addict or anything, but it's still, you know, you don't fuck with these things.
yeah. Wow, that's sad. I mean, he's an all-time online poker legend. I
Yeah,
remember when I started playing, he was one of the first guys I saw playing 5K. Him and ADZ.
yeah.
Um, no, that's sad too, man.
Also sad too.
Yeah.
I was playing a ton with ABZ here the past 5 or 6 years because I think he was married or had a girlfriend that they had a kid together in New Jersey. So he was living 20 minutes up the road from me. I never saw him, but we played online hundreds of thousands of hands these past 5, 6, 7 years. He was still playing all the time.
Up until the end, he was still playing.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, that one was sad too. The thing about that one was you could see a little bit of the writing on the wall with just kind of the way things had gone for like the 3 to 5 years beforehand, and some of the
Yeah.
things that he'd said publicly and been doing, and the way he acted, and
Mhm.
some of the paranoia stuff.
Yeah.
That one I think you could see coming a little bit. The Richard though, Rich, just that one just seems so out of left field.
Yeah. He was a legend, man. He was sick. So smart.
Remember those 5K full ring tables back on Stars back in the day?
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
basically what got me into poker, was seeing him and ADC and the other guys just like battling it out. Hollingall.
Yeah.
Who else? Take Chip. Yeah, Take Chip. Nice. Take Chip. Yeah, those were some good days.
Yeah.
I used to love watching those and think what people would have. And I used to think all those guys were just like the sickest.
Yeah. Brian M15, if you remember him too.
Yeah, I remember Brian M.
Yeah.
Do you have a squirrel avatar or no? I think
Yeah,
someone else.
yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
did. We're old school, man.
Yeah, man.
We remember, we're going to tell these kids about, like, back in our day, Poker Stars had some real men at those tables, you know?
I mean, I still play a lot of my hands online with no HUD or anything because I don't know. I guess I don't like seeing all the numbers. Sometimes I use it, sometimes I don't. But
we are grumpy old men.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, I think that's.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I was gonna end it, but if you have it,
Nah, we're good, man. I have yoga in 30 minutes.
Perfect. Well, I just want to say thank you for coming on and sharing your story and talking about all these different topics, like these things we're interested in, like cheaters.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming on today, man. I wanted to have you on for a while. I think a lot of my audience really respects you, and wanted to hear what you have to say today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was good to catch up, and eventually I'll make it down to Austin. I'll bring my family, and I'll punt around in one of your games.
Come down to the lodge. We'd love to have you. You can do some streams. I'll get some games going. We'll make sure no tanking. I'll kick them off if they tank. Like, hit the line, bud.
Okay.
Get them out of here. We'll have security escort them out.
All right, cool.
All right, man. Thank you guys for tuning in today for the podcast with Greg Merson. We're going to be back next week with Uri Peleg. We're going to be talking about the upswing course launching next week. I'll see you guys then.